Okay. Thank you, Ms. Tovar, and thank you to each one of you for being here this evening. I feel very, very blessed and grateful to be invited to come in and speak to you here in Harlingen. Ms. Tovar is very well known in the field of counseling and education, and so for me it's an honor to be invited to be here, and I'm very thankful to each of you for taking the time, because I know we all have busy lives, and possibly some of you had to choose, do I come here, do I go there? So I thank you for taking the time to be here. Like Ms. Tovar said, I am a school counselor at an elementary, at Lyford Elementary. I've been there 11 years, and I'm an LPC, and that's just a fancy word for counselor that's licensed. So I work private practice here in Harlingen at a clinic. I'll share that information a little later in case any of you are interested in reaching out for services. And I've been there 7 years. So my specialty is children and adolescents because of my background, having worked with elementary for so long. When they hired me at the clinic, they wanted me to stay with that age group, and I'm fine with that age group. I feel like it's where I need to be. So tonight's presentation is on anger management, and like Ms. Tovar mentioned, they did ask me to include tips for parents, teachers, students. So you're going to see a little mix of information in here, but at the end I do have my contact information, and if there's anything specific that you would like me to try to provide to you at a later time outside of this presentation, I'll be more than happy to respond to you. So thank you for being here. So we can go ahead and begin. Here we go. So first and foremost, what is anger? Anger is a basic human emotion, just like it says there. And all of us experience anger at one point in our lives. Why? Because we're human. Okay, so just along with happiness, sadness, we're going to experience anger. But what I do want you to remember and take with you is that, and I learned this along the way, and it's in the books and through my experiences, that all anger is a result of pain. So if you can remember the last time that you were angry, there was pain there. There was some type of pain. So it's triggered by an emotional hurt. It's usually experienced as an unpleasant feeling. It occurs when we have been injured, mistreated, or opposed in our views, or when we face obstacles that keep us from attaining our own personal goals. Is it okay to feel angry? Most definitely, because we're going to feel it because we're human. So for the most part, it's a normal, healthy human emotion. The problem is when it is not managed correctly, that it gets out of control and it can turn destructive. And then this is when we see issues at work, at school, within relationships, within family, and in the overall quality of our life. And I'm a counselor, but I get mad too. Why? Because many times I myself am hurt. I have two teens. I have two teen females. I have a 17-year-old, and I have a 15-year-old daughter, and then I have a little toddler. He's 3. And so they're at the point where they kind of feel that their way is the right way, and they want to oppose my long-held views. But it's okay to disagree and to be upset, but it's how we manage it, right? How the approach we take in being able to resolve those feelings of pain, because all anger is a result of some type of pain. So I like this quote. I included it because it says, anger is normal, but if you don't try to control your anger, it will control you. And we can probably think of situations where we've seen people that have become controlled by their anger. I've been there. So again, it's normal. And I saw this as well. And I thought I need to include that because that's so true. It's one letter short of danger, right? I mean, we see situations on the news, we hear about them from friends and neighbors where we get into situations that become dangerous because possibly that person was not guided or helped along the way. And I work at a clinic where we see people there's not a diagnosis for anger, but there's different disorders that stem from anger, depression, anxiety. And so it's very important that that if you know somebody that might need treatment, that is needing help, that we learn to reach out to them and get them to understand that it's okay. Because as I was doing research for this presentation, I came across many articles where it states that many times in our culture, it's not okay to be upset. And then we get almost made fun of because you're angry and you don't know how to control it. And I know it's important to be sensitive to others' needs and always try to provide help whenever possible. What causes anger? So there's external factors and internal factors that can cause us to become angry. And we have external factors: becoming upset, coworker, supervisor, traffic jam, road rage, canceled flights because things didn't go as planned. Internal factors: we worry about all the different issues that come along with our busy lives, family, work, and even just memory of traumatic events. So be it professional or personal, if we do not control our anger, it can lead to destructive situations and possibly getting fired from our job. Consequences, now we look at people being arrested, jail, and even separation, divorce, and the breakup of a family. And I even talk to the students at school because sometimes the playing gets out of hand, and we actually have a situation going on now where it's like they were playing and they rough play. We have to go out and monitor lunch recess, and they're playing football, they're pushing, and things get out of hand. One gets hurt. We have the parents come in, well, he pushed my son, he hurt him. They were playing, but they don't understand that the moment that they put their hands on somebody and they push and shove, that can be considered assault. And I know it sounds very serious, but it happens. And so we have to learn from a young age to teach our children to control their emotions. So possible anger triggers: insults, being teased, and sometimes that can get out of hand, stress, worries, disappointment, resentment, being rejected, embarrassed. So all these things that we can go back and think of, and we realize that, we encounter these throughout the day during our lives. And so at school, we talk about storm starters. And so for those of you that are teachers, counselors, or even just, as parents, you want some information, I did include links, and I'll be more than happy to give Ms. Tovar the presentation, and maybe they can link it somewhere, and I do not mind that y'all take it and share it. I brought handouts, and I'll share those in a minute. I could not make copies of those and pass them out because they specifically, the creators, state that they do not want them reproduced, but you can go in, and they were from Teachers Pay Teachers, and you can go into that site. I have links where you can go download them, and they're free. What I provided is free, but it becomes copyright. But I do have the examples to show you, and then you can go in and you can download and print those. And you can use those at home too, because at the clinic where I work at, when a child goes in to see me for therapy, I have lessons ready depending on the situation, and so they take those handouts with them. I work with the parents. They come in, and I always meet with the parents before I bring in a child and ask them, what do you want me to work on today, or what has been going on this past week or these past 2 weeks, and then we tackle it. So I will have that available for you to be able to use. So at school, we talk about storm starters, and we start working with them. At our campus, every student comes through counseling once a week. The classrooms come to us once a week for lessons. And so the teachers let us know what they want us to address. So we're like teachers at the campus where I'm at. And we do our lessons because it's important that we prepare our children for these situations, because they're going to happen. They're inevitable. So what's important is how we manage, right? Managing anger triggers. So first of all, we should probably try to avoid situations where we may encounter any of those possible triggers. Social situations where you may become the target of someone's insults. So learning to deal with the triggers and developing coping skills related to each one is important. And you as parents can research on coping skills. And like I said, I have information to help with that. And as counselors, that is part of what we are required to do, is to help with the coping skills. So for example, you might have a friend that likes to put on a show at your expense. So you're at a party and they start picking on you. Oh, well, if it comes to drinking, he can't hang. And, so then you go along with it and you laugh. But at whose expense? At your expense, right? So now they're putting on a show. So it's important that you mentally prepare yourself if you're going to put yourself in those type of situations, that you mentally prepare yourself to not take the situations too hard, because it's going to trigger those upset feelings. And you may possibly want to have a conversation you might have a family member that thinks it's okay to tease and gets out of hand. But many times if you have a private conversation with them and let them know, and we'll talk about it in a minute when we get to the I statements. That's one way that we can talk to somebody without offending them, so that they understand how they're making you feel during those situations. So there's different techniques that can be used in order to help deal with the anger triggers. So one thing that's important, and at the clinic, we do talk to our patients and their parents and let them know that the way that it works effectively, the counseling relationship, is that the patient, the client, has to want to participate. Because if you already go into this with a negative mentality, it's not going to work properly. You have to think positively and tell yourself, I want to fix this. How can I make it better? So counting. And I have to do that sometimes in the classroom, because sometimes the kids come in very rowdy, hyper. They come in. I have classes right before recess, right after. And so I have to take a break myself and just kind of think positive thoughts, so that when I get ready to approach them, I don't approach them in a negative manner, where now I'm going to be raising my voice and yelling. Taking a breather, like I said, just taking deep breaths, going for a walk, riding your bike, relaxing. So what we practice a lot at the clinic, and I like to do it with my patients, because you don't have to touch them or go near them, is teaching them to progressively relax their muscles. And there's a link here. So if you go in and you're able to see the PowerPoint and you click, there's a link that guides you through the progressive muscle relaxation. And it talks to you there about step 1, closing your eyes, imagining you're at a happy place, a place where that makes you happy. And so I really like that one, and it works for children, for adults. Repeating a mantra, finding a word or phrase that helps you calm down, letting yourself know it's going to be okay. It's going to be okay. Stretching. Sometimes we're stressed and we have tension in our back, around our neck, so just taking the time to stretch, and you don't need, like it says, our fancy equipment, just a little time out, relaxing, mental escape, like I said earlier. Imagining you're at a place where you like to be. If you like to fish, imagine you're out there. Playing music. I know that a lot of my patients, a lot of the students at school tell me that what helps them, like, Miss, I just like to put in my earbuds and listen to music and relax, and that works many times for many of them. Staying quiet, just staying quiet. I saw so many slides and quotes that says just don't say anything. And I told the students at school, think before you speak. I tell my own kids, think before you speak, think before you act. My girls cheer, and that's not, I'm pretty much like eating sandwiches all year because they both cheer, so it's double the expense. And when we sat at that meeting where they read the Constitution, and they told us, if there's no second chances, they're role models. So if there's anything inappropriate that they're involved in, they post up anything, they're off the team. And we're still responsible for the balance. So I had a very good ongoing conversation with my daughters, and I remind them, think before you speak, think before you act, because there's consequences. And those consequences, as you get older, are more serious. They're not just a slap on the hand anymore. We look at, like what we saw earlier, we can get in trouble, right, with the law. So it's very hard, but if you practice it, I tell the students at school, if you practice from a young age, learning to just be that bigger person and just staying quiet, it doesn't mean that you lost. It just means that you saved yourself from so many possible situations that could have ended up really, really bad. Because I should have brought it with me, but you can, so I have like construction paper, and I do this at the beginning of the year because we talk about feelings, emotions, and then I let them know that once you say something, the damage is done. If it's something negative, the damage is done, the hurt is there. You can learn to cope with it, forgive, and so I cut out a paper heart out of red construction paper, and I asked them, tell me some words that you've been told that are hurtful. I've been called fat, 4 eyes, ugly, and I like crinkle the heart a little until it's into a little ball, and then I go out and I try to straighten it, and I use a book, and I make sure that they're watching me, and I hold it up, and then I ask them, does it look, I tried my best to fix it, so does it look like when I first started and had that nice and neat heart cut out? No, miss. Well, that's kind of the way it is when you say mean things. You can say sorry, but the damage is done, and some of that damage it's lifelong. Okay, so very important to stay quiet, right? Even it's hard, but we have to practice being cautious with what we say and what we do. So like I said earlier, I statements is a form of communication, and it really does work. I've learned to implement this myself within my family, at work, because it's easy to say, like, oh, you're always getting home late, and you don't care about me, and you, right? So the person's already feeling attacked, and that's probably not gonna flow, and it's not gonna be a good, positive conversation. So we need to try to stay away from blaming. So I statements is a style of communication, and you might have heard of this before, that focuses on feelings or beliefs of the speaker rather than thoughts and characteristics that the speaker is attributing to the listener. So you're not going to want to attribute and throw jabs and hurt, because even though we're hurting, remember, we're going to be the bigger person, and we're going to do our best not to hurt, because then what does hurt do?
Make us angry.
Very good. Anger stems from pain. For example, a parent might say to their child, I feel worried when you consistently come home late without calling, instead of demanding, why are you never home on time? I statements can enable speakers to be assertive. So you're making your point, you're getting your point across, but you're not accusing. Because in that conversation, you're going to have somebody possibly shut down right away. They're not going to want to speak. which can often make listeners feel defensive and trigger angry feelings. And we want to avoid that. So all of these handouts are linked, and so you can print them out and use them at home, at school, and you can fill it in. You don't have to write it in, but mentally just keep it on the fridge. You know, I feel sad when you get home late because I feel that you don't consider my feelings. You don't consider that I need to sleep because I have to wake up early the next day. What I need is for you to be more considerate and get home on time, follow curfew. And that's just one example, but it can work for many. So first, and this is just a little more broken down here, I did notice that it was missing the L, but that's what I found online. So just so you understand, up there first, I feel, so here, and you can fill it in with whatever feeling you are feeling at the time. Hurt, when you do, and then you're going to put in the specific action behavior, or don't do. You don't do your chores, when you don't take out the trash, because I think it means you don't care. You're not wanting to do your part in this family. And so you can see how that's a better approach, right? And even for me, I've learned along the way. So you can't always control the situation you're in or how it makes you feel, but you can learn to manage your anger and express it properly. And I put in here little quotes that I really felt, like I said, when I was putting this presentation together, that I felt like, you know, I can relate to that. So years of love have been forgot in the hatred of a minute. All it takes is a minute to destroy. Exactly what it says there. This one I've given to our teachers at our campus, this printout here, and most of them have it up, or I've seen that they have it in a binder, and it's the Anger Iceberg, and it represents the idea that although anger is displayed outwardly, there's other emotions hidden beneath the surface. Just like an iceberg, we see the tip of the iceberg, but we don't always see what lies beneath. These other feelings, such as sadness, fear, guilt, might cause a person to feel vulnerable. They may not have the skills to manage these feelings effectively, and I see that a lot at the clinic. With children, they're very intelligent. Okay, so I have parents that bring in their children. We see a lot of divorce, separation, and the parents meet with me. I don't want my child to know that we're not on good terms, we're going through a divorce. I don't know how to tell him. How should I tell him? And I tell them, be upfront and honest. Chances are they know and they suspect. So I bring in the child and I start talking to them, and they know. They tell me, Miss, this is what I see, and I know this is what's going to happen. But the wonderful thing about being able to take a child to therapy and counseling is that for them it's either good or bad. As adults, we know we're going to be okay. We go through a breakup, through a divorce, and we know we're going to be okay eventually. It's difficult to go through the process, the pain, but we can rationalize and make sense of things. Children cannot. It's either good or bad. And when it's good, and when it's bad. And they're not paying attention in class, they're distracted, they're angry, they're fighting with siblings, they're being ugly to the parents. But that's where we come into play, and we help them rationalize through. And then that's when we start seeing that, well, they're feeling lonely, overwhelmed, hurt, torn between two people that they love. And I really like this. It says our emotions affect our thoughts, behaviors, the sensations we feel in our bodies. What changes do you notice? When we are angry, there are often other emotions underneath the surface. And so what's important is making sure that we help work as a team with our partners, with our children, even at work with our coworkers. I mean, when you're working with 20, 30, 50 people with different mindsets, you know, it's important to work as a team and help each other out. And that's the link to the iceberg worksheet. So anger becomes a problem when it harms you. It leads to aggression, harms people around you, disrupts school, relationships, becomes frequent, intense, lasts long, and it harms the overall quality of your life. And so here it says, the brain's telling the heart, I hate when you make me look like an idiot. I mean, because, our emotions play the biggest factor in our thoughts. When it is not controlled, it's going to lead to legal troubles for both youth and adults, and sometimes the family, because when the youth is in trouble, the whole family feels them. Problems at school, home, and the community, problems within relationships, and then you see the substance abuse, physical problems. You start feeling sick, like chest pains, and that's many times caused by stress, and it's usually a result of us harboring feelings such as anger, emotional problems, low self-esteem, even suicidal thoughts. And having been in the field of counseling 11 years, and I can't stress it enough that it's become it's so commonplace now to hear and see very young individuals wanting to take their life. And we see it. I see it at school. I see it at the clinic. And it's when they're voicing and they're saying, I need help. I feel sick. I need help. Get them help. I'll share the information on the clinic in a bit, but I've even seen people that couldn't pay, but I've seen them because I'm not going to let anybody go without help, because I've also seen the effects of what happens when it is not resolved. So feel your feelings, but don't let them become you. It's normal. It's normal to be angry. Remember, it's okay. There's nothing wrong with it. So anger cues. Your body sends you signals when you're getting angry. So which one applies to us? Do we clench our fists? Racing, pounding heart? We start perspiring? We raise our voice, maybe use profanity. We become argumentative. We cry, upset stomach, can't focus, throw things. And we all have different ways that we react. We react when we're upset, and like it said right before, the best apology is changed behavior. We can apologize, but if we're not going to show or make an effort, and remember, it's not about winning or losing, because I've been there where I felt like I needed to win every argument, that I needed to be right, and I realized, no, it's just never going to work, and I need to get it out of my mind that I'm not losing. I am working as a team, because I care about my partner, because I care about my family, about my coworkers, about my students. And so those are some worksheets as well that go along with anger stop signs. These right here, and this is, again, for teachers, counselors, as parents, you can use this here. And it says up on top, anger starts out small and slowly grows. When your anger is small, you might not even notice it. This is when you are just starting to feel upset about something, but it still doesn't seem like a big deal. Someone at this point might say that they are annoyed. I'm feeling annoyed. I'm feeling frustrated. So draw what you look like when your anger is small. And this is when you're just a little bit angry. And do this with your kids. Do it with your kids. Take it out. And they might think like, what are you doing, Mom, Dad? You're giving me homework. You're making me work more. But it's really neat to see, because we do these type of activities during therapy, that when you draw it out and you put it into perspective, you can see it and it starts making more sense. So if we can go back one more. If your anger has a chance to grow too big, it becomes hard to control. It's like a car without brakes, crashing through everything in its path. It's very hard to stop. Someone who's this angry might yell, hit, cry, or try to break things. So now you're going to draw what you look like when your anger's big, and this is when you're very angry. Anger stop signs. They're clues that your body uses to let you know your anger is growing. These clues start to appear while your anger is still small. If you notice them in time, you can hit the brakes, take control of your anger before it grows too big. Everyone has their own anger stop signs. It's important to learn what yours are so you can spot them in the future. And you can just, circle those, write them in there, and discuss them. Have a little conversation on how can we make it better. Tips for handling anger: cool off, stay calm, walk away from the situation. It's okay to walk away. And like I said, I've learned a lot myself, because many times I wanted things resolved right then and there. And so there I go. And it's like, stop, we're not ready right now. But I just want to fix this now. And it's not going to work. It won't, because you need to be in a calm place with whoever it is that you're trying to have a discussion with. Using calm self-talk: I can handle this. Letting yourself know, calm down, it's not as bad as it seems. And just like we said earlier, imagining a peaceful place, writing it down on paper, just like we did on the slides before. Sometimes you just kind of have to sketch it out. Talking things through, asking yourself, how was I triggered? What were the cues there that I need to be familiar with, so that next time I can, as soon as I'm feeling that way, maybe I'm feeling my heart starting to race, I'm feeling upset, I can just kind of, like I told the students, stop, think before you act, and think before you speak. Are the consequences really going to be worth my actions and my words? And most of the time they're not. We'll end up with other situations that many times are not good. And sometimes it's a little difficult, but there's some situations that we're not going to be able to change, and we have to just learn to accept those. So now, clinical. So now we're going to look at more of a diagnosis. And like I said, I work at a clinic. So at this school, we do have parents that come in, families, and they're looking more at counseling, a clinical approach, because the school is more social, behavioral. We need to make sure that the students are doing well, that they're healthy enough to be able to function well in the school setting within their social group. So we do a lot of working with, like, the little situations of bickering, not being able to get along, because that does affect them when they have breakups in friendships. And we address that. Academics, where we are trying to set up the students into tutoring, trying to get them to make sure that they are receiving the support they need so that they're able to make good grades. And then we have the other aspect, which is more of the clinical. And so sometimes we have to talk to the parents and let them know, I think maybe your child can benefit more from clinical outside counseling, where they will be able to go in and see a counselor for a session, which is usually about 45 minutes. And there we can address more of the clinical, maybe the underlying anxiety, depression. So anger, like it said on the other slide, is an emotion. And you're not going to find an anger diagnosis, but there is diagnosis for some of the disorders that stem from anger: the intermittent explosive disorder, oppositional defiant disorder, and there's many disorders, like it says here, more than 32, that are listed and stem from anger, irritability, aggression. And so the most commonly diagnosed that we see and treat are oppositional defiant, the ADHD, conduct, we see that in children and adolescents, psychotic, bipolar, antisocial, and as you get older, that is more of what the disorders that stem from anger. And so anger disorders result primarily from the long-term mismanagement of anger. Remember, when it is not properly treated, managed properly, you see those disorders stemming. So a process in which normal existential anger grows over time into, we see resentment, bitterness, hatred, and destructive rage, where now we have people hurting other people emotionally, physically. So anger may be caused by neurological impairment. Substance abuse doesn't make it any better. And both which can inhibit one's ability to resist those aggressive outbursts, violent anger outbursts. But for the most part, anger disorders shouldn't be blamed on bad neurology, genes. Well, my dad was violent, so that's why I'm violent. Or my mom, it's easy to want to shift blame, but we shouldn't, because for the most part, they arise from a failure to recognize and consciously address anger as it arises. And it's very important to start addressing it in childhood. So how can we better deal with anger disorders and other anger-related mental disorders? First, we must acknowledge that it's okay to be angry. It's perfectly okay to be angry. There's nothing wrong with it. But remember, it's how we manage it that's important. So it's like it says there, it's how we deal with the anger, not whether we're going to feel it or be angry, because we're going to be angry, we're going to be happy, sad, excited, but we regulate our emotions. So this is why we as a culture need to encourage the acceptance of anger as a natural phenomenon and teach children that it's okay to be angry, not get mad at them. Oh, you're always angry. You're always upset. You always have the mad, angry face. No, we shouldn't look at it in a negative form. We should help manage and help guide, our friends, loved ones, into being able to express it properly. The underlying anger must be consciously, you must acknowledge it, accept it, and understand it, and redirect it into positive or creative activity. So anger management therapy teaches individuals coping strategies such as letting go of things that are outside of their control, encourages people to instead focus on things that they can actively control and change, including their personal perspective on what happens to them and around them. And so when in time you will see, and I tell the students, you're going to see it's going to become second nature, and it will be easier as you get older to realize, I'm not even going to react to that. It's not worth it. It's not going to lead me anywhere. And so you just learn to cope and accept and kind of move on and be a helper. Be a helper, because everybody in here, all of us, are counselors. As parents, as teachers, we're all counselors. So everybody gets angry. That's just how life is. The difference depends on how you deal with your anger. When you find yourself angry, remember that the only behavior you can manage is your own. You can't force somebody to change. You can help them try to understand your perspectives and help guide them into a more healthy place. But remember, we can only manage and control our own behavior. So pay attention to your anger cues, to what triggers us. If you feel like you're going to lose control, go back and practice some anger coping strategies. And remember, they're not silly. Don't look at it in a negative manner. Tell yourself, I really want to try because I really want to make things work. I want to make things better. Don't give up. It's tough. I know, like I said, I have 2 teens. It's tough to sometimes want to be able to mold these other people into a positive, healthy way of thinking, but it can be done. If you don't give up, it can be done. And most importantly, when anger arises, think of the consequences. And just like I remind my daughters, there's consequences. Don't do it. Think before you speak. Think before you act. You have a lot to lose. That applies for all of us in life. So other quotes that I found that I really liked, speak when you're angry and you're going to make the best speech you will ever regret. Anger doesn't solve anything. It builds nothing but can destroy everything. If you are patient in one moment of anger, you're going to escape 100 days of sorrow. Patience. We all need to practice being more patient, right? Um, Thank you so much for your time. I'm open for questions. If you can skip over to the other slide, please. So those are the resources, and Ms. Tovar, I'll make the presentation available to you. You can post it and share it, and you can click there and download. Let me share the other worksheets that I have here.
And while she's getting that, I also want to go ahead and add that in HCISD,
Right here. I was gonna. I'm
we
not gonna
do
hand them out
have
because it said I
a
couldn't.
list of counselors that are out in the
Can you hand those out?
provide
Thank
to
you.
parents. So if at any time you need assistance or you're looking for a counselor to, help your family, we do have a list. I went ahead and made copies, and I have them over there on the podium. You're more than welcome to take the list with you. I'll tell you that in our district, parents will ask us, well, who do you recommend? And we tell parents, we can't select any one counselor that's in the community. We go ahead and provide you the list, and then you can select, because sometimes maybe if it's a female student, maybe the student will want to talk to only a female, or male to male, or those kinds of things. And so we go ahead and we provide the list for parents. That way, if you are looking for somebody out in the community, this will assist you. The other thing that I want to mention that Harlingen also has, we have a great partnership with Tropical Texas. And so Tropical Texas, we do have where case managers and workers come into our schools and they will visit with your child. So if, for example, you feel that your child may need a little bit more on the clinical side, you are more than welcome to, get with Tropical Texas. Of course, they don't visit with students without the parent permission, but we do have an agreement with them, and they will go to the campus. They'll go ahead and they'll visit with the student there, which makes it a whole lot easier for the parent, because that means that you don't have to take the child out of school, drive over across town to Tropical Texas, and then take them back. So we already have case managers at some campuses, and if the case manager isn't there, then they'll go ahead and work with the campus. Yes, ma'am.
Are you aware that some campuses don't allow tropical to come in?
If they don't, let me know which campus your child is at, and then we can discuss that. But they should be allowed at our campuses. The other thing that I wanted to mention was, as was mentioned before, Ms. Salazar went ahead and said the school counselors do a lot of the social-emotional and are there for academic, but they're, the extensive, the LPC, we do have a couple of counselors in our district that do have their LPC licenses. But if there is a need for more, of course, we always recommend the counselors that are out in the community.
Great. Can I have this?
Yes, of course.
Wonderful. And it's nice to know that this district offers so much support.
One other thing, I'm sorry.
Yes, no problem.
When you get the list, I will tell you that we also we've hired 2 LPC counselors to work with students on Monday through Thursday, really. So we have LPC counselors from 5:30 to 8 o'clock at Keys Academy. And so they're there Monday through Thursday nights. So if for some reason you do need to and would like for a counselor to visit with your child, we do provide that service that is free. There's no cost to the parent, but we have that service available Monday through Thursday at Keys Academy from 5:30 to 8. And when you pick up the flyer, you'll see the names of the 2 counselors that are there and the nights that they are there.